So I want to talk about a concept now that is a very important concept of the communication that we might feel kind of dorky doing it, but it is very helpful. And it's called closed loop communication. This is how misunderstandings can be reduced. And basically, it comes down to repeating what you heard back and getting confirmation. And we can practice a little bit. If anybody wants to just kind of tell me something, put something very generic in the chat, I will repeat it back to you. Just anything at all. Did I have a good morning? Yeah, you're asking if I had a good morning. Yeah, yes, I did. Just to kind of confirm, or somebody give me some like a factual statement. I love the Grad Academy. So you love the Grad Academy. And again, it sounds like you're interrogating someone sometimes, and people can be taken aback because again, they may read into this, oh, you disagree with what I'm saying. You don't think I really love the Grad Academy, but it is a way of making sure you know what was said. And they do see this. Let me see if I have a line about this. Oh, yeah, wait. So this was developed in aviation and medicine because, as you can imagine, mistakes in aviation and medicine are very costly. Hand me a field. So you'd like a field reservation form, and again, like imagine in medicine, somebody says, well, I'm not going to do any dosages because I'll get them wrong, but hey, I need an eye gel right now. Okay, you need an eye gel. I'm getting it. Boom. I need you to put a 12 lead in this patient. Okay, you want a 12 lead in the patient. Yeah. Okay. Take vitals. Okay, I'm going to take vitals. Yeah. So that's why that works. And again, it may be tough for people. And it's the kind of thing that logically we should all like it. I will say when it's in practice, especially if people aren't familiar, they may feel that they're being questioned. Like, what, you don't think I need the field reservation form for this? But when it's understood, if we talk about it first, like, hey, I like to do this just to make sure we're all on the same page so I don't make a mistake, it works. So again, okay, so where does conflict happen? We have the bear. So there's several levels. What if what they're saying is clear but lacking in detail? So if somebody says, go get me a coffee, I'm just kind of making something up here. Okay, how would you like it? You might ask them for clarification, which again can be difficult sometimes, which we could talk more about later. But yeah, it's a good idea to ask for clarification in that case. And again, like some people say, there's no such thing as stupid questions, in which case it's good to ask questions. Yeah. Any other questions about that closed loop communication? And it is, if you want to look it up online, it is developed out of medicine and aviation, and it's used in those more. And they said it did lead to a decline in negative outcomes for patients, a decline in medical errors for patients when people actually confirmed what they were doing, which is why it is standard now. All right, I'm going to roll on. So, kinds of conflict. So, not first level of conflict is intrapersonal within one person's own mind. You know, what should I have for dinner? Conflict. Next level is interpersonal between two people. We don't agree about what to have for dinner. Third, group within the group. The whole group doesn't agree. Fourth is institutional. All of UNLV is not in agreement about how to serve dinner. It would be a big dinner. Next is at the community level. Let's say zoning. Where should we have restaurants? And last one. So I'm reading this. So I'm going to hit society here. Then I'm going to go back to reading this because this is good. So last one is society, like basically the country. What should be, well, not what should be legal to serve for dinner, but kind of things that would happen at the societal level. Okay. The reason why the second through fourth, yeah, second, fourth are in red, that's what I specialize in the ombuds office. That's the kind of conflicts I do. If somebody's having the intrapersonal conflict, they probably would want to talk to a counselor or therapist. If somebody's having a community or society thing, they would want to talk to an activist or somebody to make societal change. Okay. Close the loop when sending emails, which I love. Following up with a phone call or visit to ensure the email was received, read, yes. And like, I know I like, when people say, hey, can you do a workshop in this date? And yes, I can. So the workshop is on See if I get today's date right. September 5th at 3 o'clock. And one reason why I love working with the Grad Academy is they will send an invite with the time and everything. Other people don't. And it's just, we'll email and then a week out, I'm like, oh yeah, I have this in my calendar. I'm like, hey, just want to confirm we are meeting at this time for this to discuss this. And instead of saying, oh yeah, we're meeting tomorrow, we're meeting on this date tomorrow at this time. Because I've made the mistake where I've just said, oh yeah, we're meeting tomorrow, and then it's not at the time I thought it was. So and again, they might think it's kind of a little bit too much, but it does help. Okay, so conflict happens at all these levels. Interpersonally, when it's two people, there's conflicts between peers, so folks at the same level, so maybe people in the same lab. Conflicts where the power imbalance favors, let's say, the grad student, so it may be a GA or a TA and an undergrad, and then there's the power imbalance when the power imbalance favors the other person, which might be a GA and their faculty mentor. Yeah. So these are the three kinds. Okay. What drives conflicts? And again, this is a real quick run through. Christopher Moore, who's written a lot about conflict theory, says basically we can take any conflict and it's a mix of five things. History and relationships, basically, so I saw something on Reddit today. The professor's subreddit, maybe read it, maybe not, said, oh, I had my blinker on to park and somebody came and took my place and then laughed at me. And guess what happened when I got to class? They were in my class and now I'm going to punish them. That would be the history. That's past negative relationships, past experiences influence this stuff. And I would also say that's kind of unprofessional. I've never had that happen, but I have had students when I'm like, "What's the worst interaction you had with a professor?" I had a student tell me that happened, and fingers were exchanged in the parking lot too, supposedly. They were in class together. Values conflicts are probably the most serious. They are disagreements about key things. Like for example, is the job of the advisor to get the student through the program as quickly as possible, with the best chance of getting a job, like deep values. These things are tough. Externals. This is like, okay, when I was coming into the workshop, I got pulled over by the police, I got a ticket. Do you think I'm going to be in a good mood or a bad mood for the workshop? Probably a worse mood, and that may affect, or like if we're working on a project together, I may be having family health issues or something, so I am stressed out, but it's nothing that you're doing. It's just I'm already carrying this stress, and that will affect us. So history, values, externals. Data, this is my favorite one. This is where we don't all know the same thing, or we know different things, or we don't agree in the interpretation. So basically, uh, my example I use for this, which I really want to put together an animation for this. So imagine we're in our car. We want to make a right on red. We're in the rightmost lane, so that's a correct lane to make a right on red. There's a car in front of us that also has their blinker on. Okay, so they also want to make a right on red, and there's cross traffic. Suddenly, clear right, clear left, no more traffic. The person isn't turning. And we're like, oh my God, they're stupid or they're on their phone or they fell asleep and we're about to and then we see a pedestrian in the crosswalk. That was a data conflict. They saw the pedestrian, we didn't. And this happens all the time. And I came up with this because this happened to me. I didn't hit the horn, but I was about to. Actually, I wasn't. I'm too laid back for that. But I was like, oh man, they don't know what they're doing. And then oh, I don't know what I'm doing. So yes, I was very glad I didn't do that because I would have felt like an idiot because that was a conflict because they saw something I didn't. Last one is structure. And if you want to make two people argue with each other, I'll tell you the best way is to put them both in charge of the same project and give them an unclear instructions on who does what. So make them both responsible for the same thing. You can make anybody fight. So yes, when this happens, when the power lines are unclear, there's not enough resources, people tend to argue. And again, like the last two have better solutions than the top three. Okay. Also, we have interests, which are what we want, what we need, kind of what's driving us, our interests. How are interests different from positions? Okay. A position is what you say you want. So I want a $5 an hour raise. Seems pretty straightforward. An interest is what's under the position. I need more money. Interests give us more room for flexibility. So, for example, if somebody is hiring a job and the starting salary is $70,000 a year, and there's no that can't be negotiated. And somebody just says, well, I demand $75,000 a year and I'm not going to take the job. They can't get the job if there's no negotiating. However, if they're like, look, I'm already making 75. I really would like to make more money. Okay, yeah, we can't do anything about base salary, but there are extra contractual compensation opportunities available. We could have some like part-time instruction available, something like that. But okay, so if your interest is more money, we can get you more money, but we can't change your base salary. So that's where interests come in. And this is recommended by the Harvard Negotiation Project. There's a book called Getting to Yes that basically says all this in book form. Okay, and it's wants, needs, hopes, and fears. Okay. So really quick, how to resolve conflicts. Well, a guide. Go to the bottom, go below the equator to the bottom of the circle. Instead of arguing about values, where I think most people agree, arguing about values, we don't get very far. Arguing about who did what in the past. Well, you cut me off. Well, you cut me off first. Not going to really get there. We can say, hey, yeah, you're going through a rough time, take time or whatever, but we can't really make that better for them. What we can do is share our interests and find common interests, like as in, I would, and again, when I talk to people who are having issues with an advisor, I naively think, well, your interests are aligned because you all want to get through the program successfully. That helps everybody, right? To get through the program successfully. So shifting to that, shifting to data, sharing information, and maybe making changes in structure. This all makes sense. So finishing up, hopefully strong, 5 tips to de-escalate most conflicts. So how do we de-escalate? Number 1, hitting pause. Often we get caught up in the moment and we may say things that aren't in our best interest to say. They may feel very satisfying emotionally at the time, but they're not always the best thing to say. I'm sure we can all think of times we've done that in our own lives. So no need to share that. So I'm sure we have that in mind. So number 1, hit pause. Like, all right, let's step back for a second or not agree. 2, think about tomorrow. Where do we want to be? What is our goal? When people meet with me as ombuds, usually biggest question I ask, what outcome do you want? What do you want to have happen? Think about tomorrow, work backwards from there. 3, communicate, share what you need, but also listening. Very important. One of the biggest issues people bring to my office is nobody's listening to me. 4, and this is kind of tough, but when we have a disagreement, it's really tempting to fall into the trap of, yes, they are my opponent and I will vanquish them. The problem is they're thinking the same and nobody likes to be vanquished. And even if you can defeat somebody in an argument or power struggle, if you still have to work with them, it's going to cause resentment. So like it's not like sitcom world where things reset and we're always back to status quo or the movie ends or whatever. It's like we have to work together. So it's shifting from, hey, we're arguing about this to, okay, we're both looking at a problem. How can we work together to solve this problem? How can we be partners in this? And we're both going to be better off. Last, try talking to somebody. What I alluded to earlier in the discussion, having somebody outside, and again, the ombuds office does do this. I will go to that slide. But first, when to escalate. So, and again, like usually I was speaking with a faculty member earlier today with some issues, and I said, well, what do I do? I'm like, I can't tell you what to do because I don't tell people what to do. But I'll say generically, I think it's usually a good idea to try to de-escalate, talk things over at the lowest level with the least intervention, then escalate. But sometimes you want to escalate first. Like, for example, if it's bias related or sexual harassment or misconduct, that wouldn't be, well, let's negotiate this. It would be more, this can be reported. If it's criminal behavior, this can be reported. Threats, or somebody may get actually hurt, possibly report. Disregarding UNLV policies and structures. So it might be formal channels. If it's severe enough of a threat, it may be emergency services going in the Rebel Safe app or calling 911, depending on what it is. But that would not be the time to de-escalate. Although most of the time de-escalation is appropriate. I'll talk a little bit about the Ombuds office, our approach. We are very different from other offices on campus. So first of all, we are confidential, meaning we don't tell people things, which means we don't accept notice for UNLV, because if somebody says, I might be getting harassed, per our charter, we're not a campus security authority, and per the confidentiality, we cannot tell other people. We can suggest options, which might include the person going to report something formally, but we can't report things. We don't do investigations. We also don't decide who's right or who's wrong. But here's what we do. And I'm happy to answer any questions about what we do or don't do. I'll tell you what we do. Number one, we can be a confidential sounding board when people just, hey, this is happening. I want to talk it through. Just talk to somebody else. And again, somebody outside your field who's not going to understand your lab or your discipline. Confidential sounding board, though. We have conflict coaching. So we do conflict coaching. It's based in narrative, but like, what do you want to have happen and how are you going to get there? Which is good. We also have group coaching and training. So like, for example, if a bunch of people could get along better, we can help facilitate that. And we also have a mediation practice, which is informal, voluntary, and confidential. So it's kind of like the off-ramp for conflict. And it is outside of the usual bounds of administrative processes. It's also voluntary and confidential. So if people want to go to mediation, they can. If they don't have to. If they go to mediation and don't resolve, they can go right back to formal channels. But it is confidential. Okay. So I'd like to close each session thinking about three things. And then I say, hey, this was worth all of our time. And I'm so grateful to you for taking the time. First of all, something we learned, something factual, something intellectual. Second, something more personal, emotional that we realized. And third, something we might do differently. Just reflect on those. And lastly, I would like to say thank you to the Grad College, Chanta, for setting everything up. This has been really cool. You've made it so easy for me. I just have to show up and do something I like doing. So thank you so much. Also, thank you to UNLV IT, because this all works. Thanks to everybody where my office is FDH custodial and building operations. I've got a great building to work in. Thanks to the folks at Gateway. It's also always a clean building, so custodial is doing a great job. Thank you to all of you again for taking the time on your Friday to hang out and hear some stuff.